marching.
My roots are planted in the past, though my life is changing fast. Who I am is who I wanna be.
Every which way, baby, there's no excuse to turn me every which way.
It's alright, because you know I'll make this fun. When we see the morning light, we'll be right back where we started from, 'cause this could take all night.
Welcome to Vinyl Night, Talk Radio, the groove of the music industry. I'm your host, John Robinson, coming to you live from windy Vinyl Night Studios in Thousand Oaks, California. This show features some of the best and most influential people in the music industry. Each week, we will feature an intimate, candid, and in-depth one-on-one with all the writers, musicians, recording engineers, singers, and producers that have changed the world. Before we get started, I'd like to give a big thanks out to my sponsors, DW Drums, Peisty Cymbals, Remo Drumheads, Regal Tip Drumsticks, Blue Microphones, Zoom Cameras, LP Percussion, Roland, Orlex, and Source Connect Pro. You can also download the EnterTalk Radio app on your iPhone or Android when you're on the go. Steve Dorff, there's no way to capture the diversity Steve displays, scoring motion pictures, television, theater, or an array of number one hit records, as well as arranging and producing records for many top artists. In addition to winning the NSAI Songwriter of the Year award, Steve has also been honored with more than 40 BMI, 11 Billboard number one awards. His breakthrough came with legendary Clint Eastwood, beginning with Every Which Way But Loose. This smash paved the way for compositions reflecting all musical genres, from contemporary sounds to haunting orchestral melodies. Three-time Grammy nominee and a fixture on nation's charts, his dossier includes 9 number one film songs and 15 top 10 hits, including Kenny Rogers' smash Through the Years, which was a BMI 3 million performance song, as well as I Just Fall in Love Again by Anne Murray, which captured Billboard's number one Song of the Year honors. He's also written for Barbra Streisand, Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, George Strait, and Vanessa Williams, to name a small few. Emmy nominee for 6 television compositions, including standards such as Murphy Brown, Murder, She Wrote, Growing Pains, Alien Nation, Spenser for Hire, Major Dad, Columbo, Reba, and Rodney. His TV and cable movie credits include Emmy-nominated Elvis, Rose Hill, and the animated Christmas classic Annabelle's Wish, also Babe Ruth, The Quick and the Dead, Moonshine Highway, and the Defiant Ones. Dorff's many movie songs and scores have been featured in Bronco Billy, Blast from the Past, Rocky IV, Pure Country and Pure Country 2, Tin Cup, Michael, Dudley Do-Right, Dancer Texas, The Last Boy Scout, Curly Sue, and Honky Tonk Man. Dorff has just jumped into his first love, musical theater, and he has 2 projects making their way to the stage: Josephine, the Josephine Baker Story, and Pure Country, the musical. He continues to be ever present in today's recording scene with the new songs released by Barbra Streisand, Blake Shelton, Leanne Womack, Bill Medley, Rodney Carrington, and scoring a new film. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Steve Dorff. Welcome to Vinyl Night, Steve.
Hey, John. Geez, I'm exhausted just from hearing that.
Well, you paved the road.
And by the way, I did all that while I was 5 years old. So it's yeah. But no, thank you for that. Thank you for that intro. And most of that stuff, I might add, you probably played on.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's been a great honor. I haven't seen you in a short few, and look forward to catching up. And we can catch up this way and let the audience know a little bit about you. So you were from New York, and how long until you made the move?
I went from New York actually to Atlanta. I went to school in Georgia because my parents wanted me to be anything but a musician. So I kind of ran away and joined the circus at the University of Georgia because they had a great football team. That was my criterion back in those days. And so I actually gravitated to Los Angeles through Atlanta. I started working with a music publisher in Atlanta and traveling to Nashville and doing early stuff there. But LA was always where I wanted to be because I really always wanted to do movie music. That's kind of what I always dreamed about doing as a kid. So, and I'm glad I made the move.
No, you chose wisely. But like when you were, what part of New York were you from, and did you like have a musical upbringing?
No, I didn't. I'm from Queens, New York, a very middle class family. No music background whatsoever in my family. So my parents, of course, thought I was from another planet. When I used to, ask them, how did they hear that? They'd look at me and say, what are you talking about? Because everything I did was being underscored in my head by music. And I just assumed everybody did that. Right. And, no formal training. I was thrown out of just about every music class I ever tried to get in. And, I pretty much am self-taught all these years.
Well, when was the first time you actually got on a piano? How old were you?
3 or 4, actually, because I had a sister who was 9 years older than me that did take piano lessons, and she was just terrible. And so I would crawl up on the piano bench when I was 4 or 5 and play what she'd been practicing all week better than she could. Just from my ear. And, she tried breaking my fingers and my arms and, but yeah, so yeah. And then later when I realized, this is what I'm going to do, hopefully to make a living, I went to the library and studied every book I could get my hands on about, to try to translate what I was hearing in my head, the instruments of the orchestra. I did teach myself how to read and write, obviously. Wow. And it was pretty daunting, those first 10 or 12 years. But I must say that this, and I always do tell people that the session players, especially in Los Angeles, that I've been so blessed to have worked with, guys like you and Dean and George Deering and Steubenhouse and Joe Chimay and Vinnie Colaiuta. I mean, it's just right there is the education of a lifetime for a young arranger, and I can't tell you how many times, and that I've given you just a rhythm chart and you make me sound great. So, that's just, it's just a lot of being at the right place at the right time and having the right opportunities and being surrounded by amazing musicians, which I never considered myself a great player. So the first time working with guys like Omar and Randy Kerber and Randy Waldman on keys, I mean, it was just like, they just brought everything I was hearing to exponentially better than I could have ever dreamed of having it. And the same with all the rhythm section, so I'm a pretty lucky guy to get to work with guys like you.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, when you bring a chart in and put it in front of us, I mean, it's not like you haven't thought about the parts that were going to go on there. And because I think you're a brilliant caster, and we'll run stuff by you and you'll correct us, or add to what we've done.
Sure. And that's just the great collaborative, the essence of collaboration is what makes these projects really magical. I don't think any one person can come in and, some guys do come in and every note, and I'm sure you've had it, every kick or every hi-hat is notated, and...
you mean that anal guy?
Yeah, exactly. There's a few of those out there. No, I just have always thought that why not use the extreme talents of everybody on their own instrument that brings something innovative and creative to a record that makes it spectacular. And that's just the way I've always approached it. And by always insisting, I won't even book a session if I can't get certain key guys, If you're not available, or if Vinny's not available, I'll move the date.
Right.
It's just that important to have the right players for the right project, the right piece of music.
Well, Vinny and I thank you deeply. Trust me. Hey, let's go way back. Do you remember? And I'm going to jog your brain here. The very first song that you wrote.
I do, actually. It was. You ready for this one? It was called The Family Grocer. The Family Grocer. And wait a minute now.
Right.
It was about the Family Grocer. It was. I was about, I think, 11 or 12, and that's the first song I ever wrote. How could I ever forget that one?
Well, it's all over the radio. Have you recut? Have you recut that?
No, and I don't think I ever will. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
But you
bad.
remember
one day on a session, I'll play a little bit of it.
Okay.
It was pretty awful. Yeah. No, the first meaningful. I started writing what I consider to be real songs when I was about 16, and actually Melissa Manchester recorded my very first song. I was 16 years old, and she sang a song of mine called "Moving On." It was never released. And so I kind of go back. I kind of go back that far,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do you remember your first band? Was it at that time, or did it exist?
I do. Yeah, I was. Well, yeah, I was actually. I was in junior high, and I formed a band. Of course, we were all blown away by the Beatles. So so I was about 13 or 14 years old, and we formed a band, and I ended up, we had a drummer, Herbie Goldberg, and who was okay. He was probably the best musician of the four of us. Good. The guitar player was just taking lessons. I had this little keyboard, and my other friend had a bass, and he was taking bass lessons. So that was my first band, and we were pretty dreadful. It was pretty ugly. It wasn't like you guys or like Toto.
Well, hell,
it was.
None of us started as we are,
Right.
But
the one thing it did see, they wanted to do Wipeout, and they wanted to play the hits of the day and play at pool parties for $20 or $40, and I just wanted to write. I wanted to be the Beatles. I wanted to write my own songs and create my own sound, and so they ultimately threw me out of the band, and. So having a band was actually, in retrospect, kind of the first inkling I had that I was always going to be a behind-the-scenes guy and not, Elton John or Billy Joel. That just wasn't what I was ever about performing.
Right.
So, and that was really the only band I ever had. I never really played in bands. For me, it was always about sitting in a dark, lonely room and trying to write great love songs.
Right. And,
yeah.
The whole world, it revolves around these great love songs. So, and thank you for your contribution. During all this time, though, were you 100% writing songs, or did you have some opposite hobbies?
Well, other than the New York Yankees and wanting to, desperately wanting to be the next shortstop for the New York Yankees when I grew up, no.
Yeah.
It was always about music. I loved sports. I loved New York teams. I was a big Giants fan. I was a big Yankee fan. And I still love sports. It's what I do when I'm not working. And but that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it for me. I would run to Woolworths, the five and dime, and buy every album I could, and study the labels and the album albums, and I want to know who wrote what and who arranged what and who played on everything. And that's why coming to LA, when I got to start doing sessions with guys like Hal Blaine and Tommy Tedesco, they were kind of at the end of their careers, but still it was for, I was in my 20s, and God, it was just like being thrown in with, the cats,
Right.
It was just so fantastic. And then the whole new wave and the whole new crop of guys like you and Foster and Steubenhouse, we all kind of came up together, It was so much fun, Yeah.
Well, did you, what was the age that you moved from Atlanta over to L.A.?
I came out in 1974. I was I was about 25 years old. My son, Stephen, was 6 months old. It was a big leap. It was a big transition. I did have a job. Snuff Garrett had heard, who was a big producer at the time, and had heard a bunch of my songs, and he signed me to a deal, and that's why I was able to move out here. And he really gave me my start in Los Angeles, and eventually let me start doing some arranging for him. And he was using a guy named Al Capps. I don't know if did you ever work with Al way back?
No,
yeah,
I did not, but I'm familiar.
Yeah, it was when Jimmy Haskell and Al Capps and those guys were the hot arrangers, and Al was kind of Snuff's main guy, and he was also very busy with Jerry Fuller and other independent producers, and one day Snuff came in and said, I need you to do a chart, and I went gulp, and it was Roger Williams. Remember him, the piano player,
sure.
Classical piano player. And it was a big orchestra date, something like Nadia's theme, or the theme from the Orient Express. That's what it was, the theme from the Orient Express.
Steve,
big chart.
Hold that thought. We will be right back with
Sure.
the great Steve Dorff.
You got it.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Hey, it's Tracy Smith
and Beth Venus
of Girls Talk Rock, right here on the Intertalk Radio Network.
Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific.
Okay, Beth, they know that, but we want you to know that the industry pro's choice is Silver Tiger Production.
SDP is a full-service production agency offering sound, lighting, installations, talent buying, staffing, backline equipment rental, and sales. Kapow!
It's everything in the entertainment performance industry. It's all at...
It's all that!
SilverTigerProduction.com.
my life's one miracle.
The years you never let me down. You turned my life around. The sweetest days I found with you through the years.
We are back on Vinyl Night with the great Steve Dorff, and you were talking about Snuff Garrett gave you a shot to arrange for Roger Williams, the great pianist. And what was the song again?
I think it was Murder on the theme from the Murder on the Orient Express. It was Roger was one of these guys back in that era where they would, if there was a hit theme from a movie, he would go in and cover it. And, it was instrumental orchestral, but to be thrown in with, 45 guys at one time, I was not used to that. I was used to, doing a rhythm section and then taking a couple of days to write a string chart or an orchestra chart and overdubbing it. And with Snuff, you had to do everything at once. And it was, it was a pretty quick education and a daunting one because these players were, there was no time to really hang with just 4 or 5 guys. You were, everybody was looking at the clock and it had to be right, and plus Roger Williams was, he was kind of a pain in the butt. He wanted everything perfect to play around what he was doing. So if he changed what he was doing, it would screw the whole chart up, and he never played it the same way twice. So it was like, yikes. But, so somehow it worked out. And I think Earl Palmer was the drummer on that.
Yes.
On that first session. And he was such a nice man, Earl. He was a good guy. Did you know him?
I did know him. I knew him very well, and see, what an inspiration for all.
Yeah.
Do you remember? So then you were basically arranging, but you were still writing and placing songs. Do you remember the first song, besides the Melissa thing, that maybe made some noise that you placed?
Yeah. Well, it was really Snuff, because he was such an active producer and a user of songs because he wasn't a writer himself. So I got thrown a lot of opportunities. And of course, my first number one was Every Which Way But Loose. Right. And the great story there in 25 words or less is I got a phone call from him one evening and he said, I need you to write a song by tomorrow called Every Which Way But Loose. I said, what does that mean? Yeah. I said, what does that mean? He said, well, call Milton, who's one of my favorite lyricists, Milton Brown, who lived in Mobile, Alabama, Southern guy who immediately knew what the phrase was. And we wrote it overnight. We wrote it over the phone. And I came in the next day and played it for Snuff, and we called Eastwood, and we went over to Warner Brothers studio, and I played it live on the piano for Clint. And that became the song. And not only that, but he loved the song so much that he wanted me to thread the song orchestrally through the movie. And he asked if I'd ever scored a movie. And of course I said, well, I think I can.
Yeah, exactly.
And he gave me my first shot. And that was really it.
That's great. Yeah, I love Clint. I love Clint. So that's what a great story. So then the first time you heard this on the radio, I mean, was that the first song of yours that you had heard on the radio?
Trying to think. It's my first number one. I had heard a couple others. I'd had some stuff cut before that, but that was the first one that when you heard it on the radio, you felt like driving up the road,
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
Like car wreck time, I mean, the funniest story is when I was once driving down Sunset Boulevard and I literally heard 3 of my songs in a row. It was like something out of a Fellini movie. I thought someone was either putting me on or there was some evil spirit in my car radio that was, fucking with me. Pardon the pun. but yeah, that it was. But Every Which Way But Loose was really the milestone break that I got that really got everybody's attention and helped open a lot of doors. We all have that. We all have that catalyst opportunity that kind of opens the doors for other good things to happen.
Right, and it's depending on if you capitalize on that or not. Right.
Well, I always tell people, I say anybody can be a one-hit wonder, and as you know, anybody can get lucky. But to have a career in this business, you gotta. I'd like to think you gotta be pretty good, as a session player, as a songwriter, as a producer, as an arranger. You've got to do good work.
Right. Well, that leads me into. So, I mean, you talked about crafting. Basically, I'm using the phrase a song for a particular artist. Can you give me an idea of how you would craft a song for a particular artist? Well,
that's a very frequently asked question. The question is, did you write Take Good Care of My Heart for Whitney? And the answer for me is generally no. I just try to write good songs and demo them in a user-friendly way where either a guy or a girl or, and just kind of be, and that's where the producer and the arranger side of me comes in is that I just try to do a neutral demo that I think sells the song and that shows the song off, and hopefully someone salutes and wants to record it. Now, there have been times where I've been asked to specifically write a song for an artist or for a project. And then you have to kind of do your homework and listen to what they sound like, what their range is, and maybe tailor it a little bit, rhythmically to what's their wheelhouse is. But generally for me, I've that might only be 10% of the time. 90% I'm just writing try to write a great song.
Right. So if it feels good to you, then if it gets placed or whomever hears it is going to also feel good.
Hopefully, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's generally been the case with the ones that have been successful. I've had three. I know you work with Barbra all the time, and you probably played on all three of the ones that Barbra's recorded of mine, and you know how tough she is on songs. And I feel so blessed to have gotten one, let alone three, recorded by her. And they were all the demos were all pretty intelligently done to where an artist like her would hear it and say, yeah, I can do that. I could sing that. Of course, she could sing the phone book and it would sound great.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was funny. You were playing that little medley and I heard Higher Ground, and I know that was you on there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But that was a nice medley, by the way. And I used a little bit of, I kind of cut it up a bit in a good way, I think. But
that was good. That was cool.
Well, you wrote these things, and it's nice about you is that you're able to change and actually it's not change. It's just adapt to the times.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I think what being a professional is all about.
Yeah, and I think I've always people have asked me well, is that a country song or is that an R&B song? The truth is you can take a great song, and if it's a good song and you get the right players and you get the right arrangement, you can take a song. I Cross My Heart, for instance, was a song that when Eric Kaz and I wrote that and we demoed it, we did it kind of like a Boys to Men R&B thing.
Right.
And George Strait, Bette Midler recorded it actually first. Arif recorded it with Bette, and it never made the album because it wasn't a great marriage between an artist and a song. And the song laid around for 8 years until Pure Country came along. And then George Strait, I played for George, and we cut it country with that flavoring and that style in Nashville. And it became, song of the year. So you just never know. I have a song right now. I don't know if you heard, but I've got Garth Brooks' comeback single, which came out Friday. It comes into the chart at 19 first week.
Nice.
19 bullet first week. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that.
It's good to have him back too.
It is. He makes he's Garth. He's just and to have a Garth Brooks single, I mean, at my age is like, whoa, if I'm lucky enough and it goes number one, I'll have had a number one record in 4 decades.
Well,
as a writer,
I have no doubt, Steve, that'll happen. Listen, we are talking to the great Steve Dorff. We will be right back after this short break.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording number one hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Girls are talking rock again.
And people are listening.
Today we're talking bands.
Let's talk promotion. Red Giant promo, graphics, EPKs, video, photos, social media, and brand building using content marketing.
But let's talk studio at CCMA, which is events, rehearsal, tour prep, piano, guitar, voice, rock band, lessons, workshops, and clinics. Yeah!
Bulls, proud sponsors of Girls Talk Rock.
Well, get the lowdown on these services and contact me, Tracy, at girlstalkrock.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com. We are back with the great Steve Dorff, and man, you hooked me up with one of the Beatles there, and as did you. Nice job.
I know. I was going to say, I know you played on that. I remember that one. I think he signed a drum head for you.
Yeah, he did, and I think we did it at Conway, if I'm not mistaken.
We did. Yeah, we did. We recorded that at Conway. And it's one of the stories, you know, I think I mentioned to you, it's funny to remember all this stuff because I'm currently writing my memoir, my book. I made a book deal with Backbeat Books, and I've been spending the last month and a half remembering stories and remembering things that I couldn't remember by asking friends, you know, do you remember how that went and who we used and who played on this? And there's a nice chapter on my favorite players that I've used over the years and then stories about certain songs and certain memorable sessions. And Ringo was certainly one of those.
Oh,
that was crazy. Yeah,
he
crazy.
Was, you know, a little antidote there. As I was done recording for you and I was leaving, going to the car, and I see him and he goes, you know, JR, you know, the track was great. It was great. But I had to overdub a hi-hat just to add a little more swing to it. I know he was totally fucking.
That's right.
Did he? He really did that, didn't he?
He really did. He really did.
So
he came to me and he had two things that he wanted to change about the track. One was he wanted a whistle, and I had Bill Watrous, the trombone player, who I didn't know was a world-class whistler. Did you know that?
I did, and yes.
Yeah, and Bill does the whistling, and everybody thinks it was Ringo. But and then he asked me if he could put another hat on. And I said, really? And, he did. So what am I going to say? No? You know, it was Ringo.
It's Ringo. And it made us all part of the Beatles for that one day. It was great.
Exactly. It was crazy. That was crazy.
You know, you've been, you know, known for great film composing but I think another issue I think a lot of people aren't aware is how you as a writer, you know, you pair with like let's say like a John Bettis, you know, a lyricist, and how a marriage like that works. And can you share with everybody about how to pair?
Yeah, I would say 85% of the time of the songs I write are co-written with lyric strength co-writers, because I do, you know, 90% of the music, and then I'll get with someone who's very strong lyrically, and you know, and I have my big four, I call them, that I've done most of my collaborations with, John Bettis being one of them. And, you know, every collaboration is a little bit different. Sometimes with Marty Panzer, the lyrics always came first. Through the years, he handed me a finished lyric of that song that we wrote for Kenny Rogers. And with Bettis, you know, he'll like to hear a melody first, or he'll have a title and maybe a couple of lines that he'll throw out that'll spur the music, and we sit in a room together and hammer a song out. And then there are some lyricists that I write a melody to, and they just take the melody home with them and come back with a lyric, like Linda Thompson. Linda and I write that way. So it happens. Each collaboration is a little bit different, and I don't really have a favorite. I would say John's Bettis is the most flexible partner I have because he does both really well. He can write to a tune, or he can give me a lyric that I can write to. And most of these people, their instincts, their lyrical instincts are so good that you can almost feel the rhythm of the lyric and what the song's going to feel like as you're reading it. And so I've been really lucky that way. And that's really my strength, is to be able to read a lyric and almost hear the song before I even get to the piano. Higher Ground was that way. George Green sent me that lyric, and as it was coming off the fax machine, I was reading the lyric, and the tune started. I was hearing the tune in my head. So it happens all different ways.
Wow. And, you know, I mean, let's cut to today and today's so-called modern songwriter. I don't believe, I'm going to just say he hasn't a clue of what you just said, in my opinion.
You're probably right. Well, it's, with the advent of technology, Pro Tools, everything, it's affected your career as well. You can sit and do drum overdubs in your own house whenever you want. You don't have to, you don't have to do anything, with setups, with driving. I think songwriters today, with all the plugins and all the loops and the things that I never had, if I wanted to hear a loop, I had to hire you to
right.
play. We didn't have loops. I just sit, and I still write the same way. I still, I sit at the piano, and the song organically comes out of my head and out of my heart, and then I invariably hear what the rhythm should be or what the feel should be, and it's call me old school. It's just the way I do it.
Now that's real school, and that's kind of what this show's about. All my guests are of that ilk, where they've contributed to the forward progress of music, and I think it's a good lesson to be learned for all the youth.
Yeah, that's the only way I know how to do it. And yet sometimes I'll work with these young programmers who, as a, when I've written something, but I want to experiment with, in tracking, I'll get a young programmer and he'll give me options, and he'll throw together stuff so quickly that's almost impossible to play. It is impossible to play because it's all these samples, all, rhythmically, all these sounds combined already. And and that's a lot of songwriters. My son, Andrew, who is a songwriter in Nashville, that's almost exclusively how they work.
Wow.
They go into a room with a guitar player and a programmer.
Right.
So they're actually making the record as they're writing the song. I never had that luxury.
Well, I guess there's two avenues to look at that, and that's great. But you've also paired with great engineers also, like the great John Guess, and tell everybody how important that is.
Oh my God. These guys have ears the size of the room. John especially is, it's amazing how, his center of pitch, and he'll catch little things that I would let go. And then of course now with new guys, I use a guy named Michael Woodrum now to do a lot of, Melodyne stuff and Pro Tools. Mick Gazowski is another one who's just got ears the size of an elephant, it's like the difference between hiring a bar mitzvah drummer and John Robinson to play drums. If you want it to sound great, you better get a great engineer. It's just it's one of the other important links in the chain of making things sound great. And then mixing has become an art all in itself.
Right.
It's one thing to get it down and record it right and use the right mics and get great sounds, but and then mixing is that's a whole nother art.
Yeah.
So it's but I love John. John and I've done a zillion things together. I remember working with a guy named Rick Riccio. I don't know if you remember Riccio.
I remember, sure, yes.
Yeah, and Riccio did a lot of my TV stuff, and just also great, perfect pitch. He had perfect pitch, and so he could tell me, hey, the second trombone out there's quarter tone flat. I'd look at him, I'd go, really? And he was right,
Right.
So yeah, the engineers are so important, and the second engineers have become so important because those are the guys generally running the Pro Tools rigs, and so it's gotta have them.
Well, listen, you were mentored. When you broke in, you were mentored by Snuff and I'm sure a whole bunch of other guys. But now that you've become seasoned and a veteran and successful, how do you mentor now? And is there advice that you could maybe give the new generation?
Well, I've always said, and this is nothing new, but this is a business of getting rejected every day, including today and tomorrow, for all of us. If you're not able to pick yourself up and dust yourself off a couple of 100,000 times in this business, then it's probably not a good idea to get into it, because it's loaded with rejection. And on the songwriting front, I always tell young writers, write what you know. Don't write about stuff that you think you know or you'd want to know about, because it never comes. It's not. The truth and the honesty is not there. But if you write what you know, if you're going through a heartbreak, or if you're going through, some woman who just, you're digging the shrapnel out of your back, like we all have at one point.
Ouch!
You and I talked about that a few times. Hello.
That's the next show, Steve.
Yeah, at least I get some great songs out of those deals. It's like, I look at it and go, okay, well, I got that song out of that deal. So, could have been worse. But write what you know. If a young kid's, if you don't write about the family grocer, because I don't know nothing about the grocer. But when I started writing about love and about being hurt and putting my own feelings, what I was in touch with, into the songs, they became real. So.
Wow. That's great. That's absolutely great advice. And why this third segment is winding down, man, this went quick with you, Steve. So you've got the Garth Brooks single, and real quickly, you've got some Broadway stuff coming up.
I do. I wrote a show with John Bettis called Josephine. It's the Josephine Baker Story, and the great Deborah Cox is going to. I know Deborah very well. Yes. Yeah, she's amazing, and she's playing Josephine. We just did a out of town run in Sarasota, Florida this spring, and we expect to be on Broadway in the fall.
All right,
2017.
Everybody, I want to thank the great Steve Dorff for being my guest on Vinyl Night. You've been listening to Vinyl Night, powered by Intertalk Radio, the groove of the music industry. Thanks for tuning in. You can contact me at jr@vinylnight.com. Make it your own Vinyl Night. Make this your Vinyl Night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.